Hi, I am the efficiency professor. Today our subject is why climate change should never have happened. Firstly, what is climate change? Very simply, there is over 400 million tons of excess carbon in the atmosphere directly as a result of fossil fuel emissions. This causes global warming because of the greater insulation effect of this extra atmospheric carbon, which drives climate changes. These changes include more extreme weather and rising sea levels due to the melting polar ice, migration and much more. What should be happening is that atmospheric carbon should be going into the ground through trees and plants and then into the soils eventually to be captured forever deep in the ground. That was until we discovered fossil fuels and mined this ground carbon as energy and spewed it right back into the air from where it originally came from millions of years ago. Humans have literally reversed the natural carbon process with the use of fossil fuels. It does not need to continue. Why? We do not need fossil fuels when we can grow them. We have always been able to grow our fuels with crops. We do it now. Why have we never completely replaced fossil fuels with crop energy? They have almost no emissions and are far safer, far more profitable and completely sustainable. The answer can be traced to those who want to control the supply and therefore the price of the fossil fuels in the global markets. The global trade in fossil fuels drives inflation, causes many wars and holds governments and consumers hostage to third-party actors with very different agendas. This primary resources control should never have been lost. Now it is essential to take back energy control before climate change spirals out of control. Chemical fertilizers have taken an equivalent hold over farms through their soils that are so bereft of carbon and soil health they only work with chemicals now. However, this seems to have gotten away from the chemical fertilizer manufacturers as fertilizer prices have escalated to the point of not being affordable for many farms any longer, which is manifesting itself in food shortages globally. The inflection point for chemicals and soil health has been reached and passed by most farms already. We must now replace these chemicals with organic alternatives produced locally to decouple from global fertilizer markets which control economies in the same way fossil fuels do. Essentially, reversal of climate change comes from the replacement of fossil fuel energy and products from our economies. This can be done quickly, efficiently and effectively. Fossil fuels can be replaced with energy crops grown in our farms. This agro-energy is not a new concept. There are many energy crops and fuels grown already in considerable scale. What is required is that the growing of these crops is expanded globally and they are introduced into lesser developed countries to allow them to develop their own agro-energy resources, giving a far more equitable global energy balance. This is achieved immediately by all fossil fuel incentives and orders being changed to agro-energy incentives and orders, and farmers will grow these fuels in an ever-growing capacity to replace fossil fuels. The transition will not take a decade. This slows and then stops further emissions, giving a transition period out of fossil fuels and into fuels compatible with our current technology, meaning less expense for taxpayers and households and a booming agro-energy sector growth in every country. The transition to carbon farming, where rebuilding soil organic carbon drives regenerative farm change and commerce, is only possible with huge volumes of soils for each farm. These soils must be of a consistent organic standard for international markets. This quality and capacity gap has now been filled by a new technology developed by Infinity Biological Soils in Australia. Their bioreactor produces optimized, humus-rich, organic soil fertilizers of consistent food-grade quality in very large volumes. All pathogens and weed seeds are eliminated and all emissions are captured, which enables the bioreactor to process food waste from cities and towns, manures and other difficult waste stream challenges from a small and profitable footprint business, which lends itself to national scaling very quickly. The enormous raw material scale required to produce billions of tons of organic fertilizers has a simple solution in that millions of farms can grow their own raw materials for their own organic fertilizer needs, just like they used to before chemicals. Farms can simply trade these trees and crop-based raw materials with bioreactor soil centers for new organic soils immediately, which localizes and stabilizes soil production supply and costs and results in every farmer, rich or poor, receiving almost free organic fertilizers. The farm cost savings amount to 20% or more as farmers happily put carbon soils back into the ground to rebuild their soils and reverse climate change for us all. Millions of farmers applying hundreds of tons each achieves billions of tons of carbon capture, naturally. This simple agro-energy and soils plan offers the only sensible, viable and realistic strategy to reduce atmospheric carbon in a timely and cost-effective manner. Oil, Gas and coal companies should lead this transition to sustainable crop fuels and organic soils, as this will convert their companies into long-term sustainability away from their current unsustainable terminal trajectory. The transition is as simple as contracting farmers to grow the energy crops and supplying them with organic soils. This solution therefore exposes the flaw that is fossil fuels. Without them we would not have had the Industrial Revolution or modern living as we know today, but do not need our energy from fossil fuels. We need crop energy with organic soils fast. Policymakers, investment decision makers, influencers, here is where your attention should be. Infinity Biological Soils is committed to investing as much into new projects as possible to support the growth of carbon farming and reducing climate change. For bioreactor placement and partnerships, please contact Infinity Biological Soils Limited, Australia. www.infinitybiologicalsoils.com. For more information on energy crops or carbon, please contact me, the Efficiency Professor. For more information for farmers, visit www.wealthyfarmers.net for more free content. Click and subscribe or join us as a Patreon member to support our soil projects. Big energy or corporate proactive? Want to build your global brand? Sponsor a project. Are you a social media influencer? We have the content, you have the audience. Let's make it happen. Thank you for your time and we hope you found the information enlightening. Finally, please pass forward this video as our projects are funded by social media. Remember, knowledge is nothing without understanding and implementation. I provide the knowledge, you accumulate the understanding, and we implement the projects. Thanks for watching another Efficiency Professor Media Production 2022. Efficiency Professor